Welcome to the clubhouse. I am Don Swenson, and with me, as always, is.
The pink-eyed Mr. Sam, calling via Bluetooth.
Yeah, Sam couldn't be with us today in person because he's a little bit contagious. But he was, through the magic of technology, was able to join us, and we had quite the magical conversation this evening. We had Max Rodio, president of Hammonton Pride, and Maddy Milan, the winner of the first Miss Hammonton Pride pageant, and we talked with them about this wonderful exhibit that they put together for the Noyes Museum of Art of Stockton University called Drag is Not a Crime. But we talked to them about so much more, didn't we, Sam?
Yeah, some of it was lighthearted, and some of it we dove pretty heavy too. So be ready for that. It was really an educational, entertaining, and awesome experience talking to these two new friends of the podcast.
Yeah, so I don't want to delay this podcast any further. I want you to sit back and listen and learn. Anyway, here we go with Max and Maddy. Welcome to the clubhouse. We have with us in the studio here in the little shed that could. We've got Max Rodio and Maddy Milan with us.
Howdy. Hello, everyone.
So I really wanted to talk a little bit about Hammonton Pride and kind of how that started. It's like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, we had our first kind of like putting out feelers type of meeting like October of 2021. And then by the beginning of the following year, we kind of solidified, who was participating. And then we really didn't kick off until Pride Month of that same year. We had a couple events downtown, but I really think we've kind of hit our stride once we had our first Miss Hammonton Pride pageant, then November of 2022.
How did this all start? Like, did you guys find each other on the internet, or are you just old friends? How did something like this even begin?
So I reached out to the former mayor's advocate, actually, Jim Donio. I felt that Hammonton kind of needed that next step in having some kind of pride committee organization, whether or not it was a part of our local government or independent, whatever. I just felt like, he was a good resource for me to start with. And he helped put together a whole group of people that, he and I felt would be interested in participating. And so we convened towards the end of 2021. And then, whoever stuck after that, it's been great.
Great. So how did Miss Hammonton Pride start?
I remember, I think I was sitting in the Funky Cow with some of our members, Nick, Adam, and I believe Ricky was there too. And I said, how fun would it be originally, which I don't even know if I've even told anybody this before, but I originally thought it would be the Miss Blueberry pageant. But then in talking to one of the drag performers, Ariel Versace, who's been at Cathedral many a time, and talking to her with some advice, she suggested Miss Hammonton Pride. That way it was a bit more recognizable and you knew, where the title holder was from.
Right.
But I don't know, it just kind of came to me while I was sitting there. I'm like, I feel like this would be a fun way to, find a representative for Hammonton Pride other than ourselves.
Sure.
And obviously, as I've said in the past, I'm a huge fan of, RuPaul's Drag Race and all things drag. So to be able to do something like that in our town, I think was really special to me.
Okay.
How hard is it to win Miss Hammonton Drag, right? That's what it's called?
Miss Hammonton Pride.
Yes.
Miss Hammonton Pride. What goes into winning this prestigious award?
Well, I can kind of lay out the categories, but I think Maddy Milan could also kind of shed some light on pageantry. But the pageant consists of 4 different categories, which is pretty common. You have a presentation category, and presentation varies year to year, based on a theme. So our first Miss Hammonton Pride pageant, which Maddy won, was Blueberry Eleganza Extravaganza. So you had to bring out your best blueberry wear and present it to the judges. This past year was titled "Drag is Not a Crime," which is kind of where our exhibit was then born out of. So it was, trying to showcase that message within your outfit. And after that, there's introductions. So you're, introduce yourself to the judges, to the audience, tell us a little bit about yourself. Everybody always gets asked the same question, what would winning Miss Hammonton Pride mean to you? And we've gotten some really incredible answers out of that. After that is evening wear. So it's pretty self-explanatory, your best evening gown.
Is it like walking the runway, or
yes.
you just like come out and show it?
Yep. So, we host the pageant every year at my venue here in town, Cathedral Event Center. But we build out an entire runway that goes into the main room. So obviously you have the whole stage to showcase your garment, but also the runway. But after evening wear is talent. So, that could be anything. And we've had some incredible performances with talent.
What'd Maddy do this year?
Well, this year I had my step down, they call it, which is when you crown the new winner. So Dallas Dubois is our current reigning Miss Hammonton Pride. And so this year, as my step down, I did a tribute to, excuse me, I did a tribute to kind of the history of drag and the icons who are kind of important to drag culture, queer history. And so I did a number kind of honoring, Judy Garland, and I did Somewhere Over the Rainbow, because that has for a very long time been kind of like an anthem, I suppose you could say, like through queer culture. And she as like an icon is also really important to queer culture, just because of, what she's been through in her life, but also she just represents somebody who through it all, through the hardships and through, the pain of her life, is a strong, incredible, talented, powerful woman who is talented. That a lot of queer people identify with that, because she was always an outcast throughout her life, and it was well known even during her lifetime that she was, not necessarily doing great.
Yeah.
And, I think gay people resonate with that, and also just her incredible talent, her incredible power on stage. And, that's timeless. And so anyway, I wanted to give tribute to that. That was my step down, because I think our history is really important. And I think what Hammonton Pride is doing is incredibly important, because we're creating history in this town. We're creating a space and a place for queer people to come together and celebrate who they are in a place where they maybe don't feel like they're able to or weren't able to before, in a way that is like really celebrating them and the town, because it is where they live, and we're a part of it just as much as anybody else is.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I got so many questions just based off of that. I'm gonna let Don say the next thing, but I will say, as far as the performance being timeless on Wizard of Oz, literally this is the second day in a row I'm talking about it. So
That's wild.
yeah, I was talking about my mom just yesterday, who's a massive Wizard of Oz fan. I showed it to my kids, and the movie holds up.
It's so good. It really is. It's so good, but also like on the surface level, it's beautiful. Obviously it's beautiful, but when you start peeling away the layers, even of like the books, it's so trippy, because each one of those characters represents a part of society, and whether when it was written, it was like that society as in terms of that time period, because it was written so long ago, but it still holds true. Like there's the politicians, there's the industry, there's like the working class person. Like it's just such an incredibly intelligent and smart thing, and like just that aside, the campiness of it is just so fabulous. And just, come on, red ruby slippers, genius.
Yeah.
There needs to be more of that in film.
I'm telling you.
I want to see less AI, and I want to see more sequins and rhinestones.
Well, that's a departure from the books, though, right? Because it was
It is,
originally
yeah,
like silver.
yeah.
Right.
I think they did that because they were using Technicolor, and the red was, would show up better on
pops,
film.
yeah.
Yeah, it would pop more.
Yeah.
So I think they changed
Yeah, it
it
pops.
because of that.
So what, Maddie? What got you involved with drag in the first place? Like, what brought you into that performance space?
Well, I started drag, God, like 14 years ago. I think I've been doing it for about 14 years. And I started by, I was in Provincetown. I would go to Provincetown every summer. We would go with our friends, and there was a amateur drag competition there, sort of talent show called Showgirls. And you basically would show up, and you could sign up for it, and you got to perform. And if you were good, you'd win like $500 or something like that. And so we would like plan, okay, what are we going to do this year? Let's do like a crazy, dance number, or like let's make a crazy costume and like put something together, and we'll go perform at Showgirls. So I did that for like 3 or 4 years in a row. And then my final year of doing that, which I, by the way, never won. I think we won one year. We came in tied. We did a character named Cupcake. And you can find it on YouTube, and it is terrifying because we made this giant like puppet body that basically looked like a chicken nugget that had like a bikini on it, and we did a striptease, and it was, and we tied for first place, which was crazy. But anyway, yeah. So I would do that, and then I did this character finally that was called Little Miss Maddy Milan, and it was sort of like a toddlers and tiaras moment, and I did like this whole big dance to like this disco number, and I did not win, but when I came home from that, I was like, God, I just loved that whole, I love the preparation of it all. I love making the costume. I love the whole bit. And so I started getting booked for things in Philly, and then it just sort of took off. And then I was hosting shows, hosting brunches, performing like in regular, like group cabarets throughout the week.
Were you a performer at all before this, or this is your first time on stage?
Well, I went to school I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts, but I studied theater design. So I studied costume and set design, and you had to take a lot of performing courses. So I had to take dance classes and things like that. I was horrible at it in terms of like academics are concerned. Those like worst grades I ever got, but I was really good at the design part of it. Like really good at the design part. So that's like what I really wanted to do. I wanted to make costumes that I could wear. I want to make what I wanted to make. Because I'm a designer for like as my career, so I make clothes all day long. But those are like, we got to worry about selling and cost and IMUs and all these things. But when I'm making costumes for myself, I can make whatever I want to make, and I can make it as big as I want. I can spend as much as I want or as little as I want. I can be as creative as I want or as lazy as I want. But because it's for me, I have my own standard. I have my own like, way of working. I have my own thing, and it's like, I can make something for myself, and so that's what I loved about it. And
what an advantage you probably have over the other competitors, that you get to do something like that, and you have that skill set to make whatever you want.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it kind of is, because I can control it to a certain degree, but like drag has become so popular, and it's become such an industry of itself that girls can kind of get things made for them custom so easily if they, especially if they have the money for it. And so you can kind of get anything made at this point, and some people are willing to spend a lot of money. So it is kind of hard in terms of like competing with people creatively, just based on their costumes. I do my own hair, I make my own costumes, I do my own makeup. That I think is more unique, because a lot of girls don't make their own hair and their own costumes. But everybody's
at the very least, you're saving a lot of money.
Believe me, I make up for it. I spend plenty on rhinestones and fabric. But
now, as far as like wig making, do you start from scratch?
Well, from scratch in terms of I buy a lace front wig, and then I cut it, curl it, style it. Okay. But I don't make a wig. That would be next level. Yeah. Over the top. Yeah. People do that too, though. Yeah. There are people who do that. Yeah. They get full custom like lace wigs made.
John,
Yes.
I feel like I would be doing a disservice to our listeners if I didn't ask this question. Earlier, you had mentioned a toddler in a tiara. What? And that was your moment? What does that mean?
Well, there was this show, Toddlers and Tiaras, which is like a reality show. Oh God, don't ask me what year because that's probably gonna date me a lot. I think some of those people are like in their 30s now that were kids on that show, but
Oh, it's old.
yeah, it's like been around. It's like mid 2000s. Like it was on TV like the early 2000s, mid 2000s, and it was like a show about like these kids that would compete in these child pageants, like Honey Boo Boo.
Yeah.
You probably
Oh,
know who that
yeah,
is.
yeah.
She was on Toddlers and Tiaras, and so like it's just a crazy show, and like it's wild that these things exist, and like for me to do drag and say that that's crazy, I mean it's pretty crazy that these kids do that, but it is like impressive, and it's great that they're willing to do it, but it is also really wild, and it's just like so over the top because they have the piled on hair, they're wearing full makeup. These kids are like 5 years old maybe, and they have to
Whoa.
do a full pageant.
Is that
themselves.
good? Is that good for a kid, you think?
That's like its whole. I feel like that's a whole show unto itself. You might need a therapist on that one to tell you. I would maybe say it's not good to make a kid do something like that. I think it would probably really mess with like your self-worth because, as an adult doing pageants, you can get really into it, and you kind of have to be in the right headspace, and you have to be willing to say, I didn't win this one. They didn't like me. And it's not personal. But like when you're a kid, I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, especially when your parents are all in on these
Yeah.
kinds of things.
Yeah.
We've all seen that before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to let people know who are listening, Sam is joining us remotely. If you're wondering why his voice is a little bit different from everybody else's, he's a little under the weather, but we really appreciate him joining us too. So, what I guess going around the room, what was your first experience like seeing a drag performer, and like I guess what did that mean for you, either personally or yeah?
Do you want me to go first? Well, I mean, I guess this will probably make me seem a lot younger than I am young, but my introduction to drag was through RuPaul's Drag Race, the TV show. So I remember being in high school seeing that for the first time, and I guess thinking about it, I don't even know if I knew drag necessarily existed, or maybe I did but didn't quite understand it, or to what capacity it existed, and obviously its history. And since seeing the show and obviously everything then that I've done since and seen, I've learned so much and really, appreciate it on such a deep level. But after watching the show for several years, my first drag show, in person, was my own that I hosted at Cathedral, where we had Trixie Mattel from RuPaul's Drag Race. She's probably one of the most well-known queens to come out of that franchise at this point. She came to Little Old Hammonton for me, but we had several hundred people there, and it was a really successful show. So I guess I kind of brought that to Hammonton, not only to share it with everybody, but also so I could experience it.
Sure.
And then since then, I've seen other drag shows, especially becoming of age. Then you can go to the bars, you can go wherever. Or obviously now that it's more mainstream, there's queens that go on tour to different theaters. It's like Maddie said, it's such an industry now. But for me, I guess and I don't think I quite understood it when I first saw drag, but now a little bit older, and kind of taking this year, especially with the exhibit that we've done, to reflect on like what drag really means, at least to me. And that it's just such a visual representation, I think, of like joy. Like it just radiates. Yeah. It's such a pure art form because it's so unique to each person who does it. And I think it also, it's like you're adding on all these different layers of makeup and padding and outfits and pantyhose and bras and all this stuff, but actually I feel like you're really getting to the core of that person and maybe the diva that's inside of them. So yeah, it's pretty special.
Okay. Maddy?
Yeah, that's beautiful, Max. I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to say one thing before I tell my long story, but
Sure.
like what you said about like all the things bringing out the person, the performer in a unique way. Like I feel like that's the part that people get kind of stuck on sometimes in terms of like what drag is. They think it's a man in a dress, which in a lot of cases it is a man in a dress. But, you know, like it is a pantomime, like in its essence, like it always kind of was like a spectacle, because it's like it's always about the shock of like, oh my God, that's not a woman, that's a man. Like that is the allure of drag. And I think that's why people like went to see shows. I mean, drag's like maybe 200 years old. Like it's not an old thing as we might think it is. I mean, it's been around in like different contexts, but drag as we know it, like in terms of cabaret performance of a person in a dress performing a song or doing a dance on a stage, is not that
I
old.
got you, because men have been like performing as women since, I mean, forever.
Sure,
right?
like the Greeks and Romans, I'm sure did it. I mean, I'm sure it's existed in many cultures in many ways, but I don't think it was called drag at that point. I'm not a historian. I don't know for sure. I just know that, like, in doing my own research, drag as we know it is not that old, but it's still old. Like, it's been around since the 1800s. Like, the first recorded drag ball was in, like, the late 1800s in Harlem, and it was men and women together in a ballroom, dressed as opposite sex, dancing together, having, like, a celebration together, and it was essentially a pageant where they would show off themselves in, like, this masquerade format. And we know that because it was rated, and it was broken. That's how we know about any of these things, by the way, usually through like police reports, because it was illegal for people to do anything of the sort through the 1960s. You could be arrested for dressing.
That's so fascinating. The vast majority of ones we know about are like through police reports
or through personal accounts, if people made those personal accounts. You know, like there would have been letters, there might have been some very few photos because it was risky to take photos, but there are photos. I mean, you know, all these things do exist, but they're scarce. So a lot of accounts are like personal accounts and things like that.
Wow.
But yeah, drag in its essence is not so old. It's not like it's been around forever in its current form.
Yeah, I guess in the old form, it was really just guys playing the part of a woman in a play, really. And that's all
kind of. Yeah, there's that version of it too, which I think everybody accepts that a little bit more because they know what they're in for, and they're not feeling like they're being tricked, because they're like, I'm here out of play. But I guess people get scared of the idea of like people, you know, in a club or just out in the world trying to trick them. I'm not sure. I don't even want to get into the psyche necessarily of why people are scared of drag, but focusing on like the fact that it's men or people in dresses, I think terrifies people. But I think what's great about it in terms of its meaning in queer like culture is that it offers you an opportunity to really truly like put yourself aside for a second, or not put yourself aside, but like you can truly be yourself without feeling like you kind of have like a shield on you. Does that make any sense? Like,
sure.
You kind of feel like you have a superpower because maybe people don't recognize who you might be as a boy, because now you're dressed as a girl and you can really be yourself. And I think that that's what's so appealing about it. And I think that that's why it's always been so incredible to see, because you're seeing somebody who has no fear, who has, you know, they're not afraid anymore, and that can really terrify people.
Wow, that's so interesting, because I think about like myself with wrestling, because I do pro wrestling, and like the playing a character is so fun, but like it's interesting because the way you're putting it, it almost sounds like in a show the drag is like playing a character, but it's almost like playing a character of yourself.
Yes, 100%. It is. It's 100%. I mean, some people truly develop characters and they like that, and I think that's great, and I love that form of drag. I love it. But then there are some people who are just truly themselves. They look stunning, or they look crazy, or they look like, an elf, or whatever it is that is their fantasy. But the whole idea is that how they're dressed and how they're presenting themselves is allowing them to like break that shell and kind of like put those fears aside and truly be themselves. And they're now in a place of kind of power in a way in their community, because they have an audience who's like looking at them and saying, yes, look at this strong like person who is like owning all the things about them that everybody's told us is wrong, that people might not like, that maybe I don't even fully understand, but like, wow, like there they are, and they are powerful and they are beautiful. And that's my absolute favorite part of drag, is that the whole becoming your larger than life self and giving power to that for other people.
Don, have you ever been to a drag show?
I don't, not recently. College, maybe.
So we did
one at Hofstra USA. There was a drag show at Hofstra USA that I went to. It was like 96. Somewhere.
I actually went, I don't know, Max or Maddy, if you guys were there, but I went to my first one. My only one I've been to was here at the Eagle Theater just several months, maybe a year back. Were you at that one?
No, but I love that they were doing them there.
Oh, yeah. I think that was It's Not Personal, It's Drag.
Yeah.
Yes, that was the one. And let me tell you something. First of all, the hostess goes around asking everyone, all right, who here is gay? They get a big applause. Who here's a straight woman? Applause. And then finally, the host says, now we're going to go out on a limb, but where are my straight men at? And in my like biggest tough guy voice, I was, yeah, I'm here. And the rest of the show, they picked on me. They put me on stage.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. It was from an entertainer. I'm telling you, it was one of the most entertaining, fun shows I've ever seen in my entire life.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, now you know that's.
You survived.
That is the number one trick that they will all do at the beginning of their shows to identify who they're going to pick on for the rest of the show, and you survived.
Wow. So this is like a known trick, and I just, they got me. So, but afterwards, they were like telling me I was a good sport. I had fun. It was such a blast. And I have to ask, like, so with shows like that in town and other things happening that I know Don and I want to discuss later in the interview, where do you two think Hammonton is at with this idea?
Sometimes, I don't know. I mean, I guess since I live here and have lived here since I was born, sometimes it's hard to gauge. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it feels like amazing. Other times it feels like not so amazing.
Yeah.
Which is why with starting Hammonton Pride, it's kind of been like a dance, trying to figure out, how fast are we going to move, how fast are we not going to move, what is going to be acceptable or not acceptable at first, which obviously to us, everything about drag and everything that Hammonton Pride is acceptable. Mm-hmm. But with a town like Hammonton, it feels as though, it's like we're rocking a baby. And we have to really, really work at it and kind of rip off the Band-Aid very, very slowly to then, hopefully maybe at least get a few people to fully realize it wasn't scary at all. Right. And there's nothing scary about this.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about sort of the leading up to last year's holiday parade, and there was just a lot of negativity and a bit of bit of nastiness on the internet.
Yeah, not quite, not just a bit.
It was a lot.
It was a lot.
It was a lot. It
Yeah.
was threatening.
It got dark.
It was very dark.
It was really disappointing to see that in people that you're probably passing on the street.
Yeah, and I mean, even it was definitely an education, I think, for all of us in seeing some people's true colors.
Yeah.
Especially even, you know, for like my parents, for instance, like they obviously grew up here, both of them, and you know, a lot of those very people online who were targeting this organization and their son, you know, are people they went to school with.
Yeah.
So it was also, it was a lesson for all of us, you know, not even people directly involved with Hammonton Pride, of like, whoa, like this is what some people are capable of, or of saying about their own neighbor. So yeah, it got very nasty. And what's surprising too, or I guess it's not surprising with how social media is, but a lot of the people too weren't even from Hammonton, or possibly even thinking of attending the parade. But then, you know, it's kind of a bandwagon then, and then everybody piles on. But there were a few, you know, keynote speakers, I guess I will call them, that we took note of.
Yeah.
But you know, once we got there, you know, we had a wonderful group with us. You know, the fire department and the police department were fantastic in, you know, making sure that we were safe. We had our own little security team with us too. But other than a few boos, you know, we had a fabulous experience. You know, we definitely, I think, do it again, bigger and better.
Absolutely.
Let me chime in for 1 second, because I don't know if you realize this, but as you were driving down the street, there was a little booth there with 4 hosts, and they were kind of like introducing the floats or whatever. I was one of those hosts, and I could not wait to see what happened when you all drove up, because of all the stuff that was going on online. I was so curious, like, what's going to happen? And sure enough, I was sitting there front and center. Your float got the biggest pop of the whole night. Like, you guys got the most cheers. You guys got more cheers than Santa that night.
That's crazy.
I know a lot of people who came to the parade who hate parades, myself included, who went just to support, because like it was just like it's.
Yeah, we heard they had one of the biggest turnouts ever for that.
Yeah. And then, you know, and it all comes down to, it's a lot of keyboard warriors, because like I said, there really wasn't that much negativity there. And like Sam said, you know, there was a whole lot of applause and support, and it was a great night. So, I mean, hopefully maybe, you know, the people who were so against it, or so scared, or so worried, you know, they saw what our message is, why we're there, what we're doing. You know, it's not a bar show you're going to see at 2 a.m. in, you know, the Hammonton Fire Department Christmas parade. You know, we were very much, I think, echoing, you know, the Miss America of it all.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's pageantry. And again, you know, it comes down to people don't understand what they don't even realize they don't understand. And there's obviously so many different facets of drag, between, you know, there's club queens, there's pageant queens, there's so many different categories that makes up this entire community. So there's a time and a place for everything. But obviously, you know, our Miss Hammonton Pride pageant is pageantry.
Exactly.
Which is a whole different animal.
It might be controversial to say, but I mean, I don't blame any of those people for feeling the way they feel.
Wow.
I mean, listen, this is why I'm saying this. Because you can't blame somebody for not knowing what they don't know. You know what I mean? Do I think that the way they reacted was appropriate? 100% no. Like, if they were truly concerned about it, they might have wanted to do maybe some research into it that wasn't, you know, from a biased source. But they didn't do that. They went to the internet and they, you know, expelled their anger. And that's not a great way of dealing with it. I understand why they would do it, but I also don't think it was justified, because we're not like gonna come down the street on stripper poles. Like, that's not what.
It's like 25
why
degrees.
would we do that? Yeah.
Well, what if?
Do you think?
And this is definitely clearly not how I feel. This is just curious if it's coming from them. What if it's not, that's not what they're worried about? Like, what if literally just the idea of you guys dressing up is not okay to them, and they're
Sure.
trying to fight
Well,
that,
I
you
can
know?
hear that, but at the end of the parade, did they not have a grown man in a wig in a red velvet costume coming down the street that they were telling their kids is a real person? I think that's kind of
Wait,
maybe.
what are you saying
I'm
right now?
referring to Santa
Whoa,
Claus.
hold on,
Wait.
guys.
I'm referring
Guys.
to.
Saying Santa.
I'm referring to. There was not. We weren't the only ones wearing wigs in that.
Well, do you
parade.
think
So-
that people have just a general lack of curiosity? Like, do you think people are?
I think people can be very ignorant to outside of their bubble.
Yeah, I think it scares them to think that there's a world that exists outside of what they know is right and wrong, and it's hard for them to recognize that maybe other people want to live their lives a different way.
Sure.
And again, do I agree with that? No. But do I understand why they behave the way they do? I do. But I also think, as a decent human being and as a neighbor, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. Don't tell me how to live my life. And, as a performer, when I go to an event, I'm going to what I consider to be the safest place for me. That's my community. When I go and I perform in a show, I don't think I don't know who I'm performing for, because I don't know everybody in the audience, but I do know that, whether it's a venue or a club or whatever, that is my space. And maybe they feel like the Christmas parade is their space and I don't belong there, sure, but anybody who wants to can come see my show. I'm not going to tell them no. And I think we should have the same courtesy. But also at the same time, all of this said, we would never have done anything that, we're normal human beings. We're not going to come down the street and do vulgar hand gestures, say, we're not going to swear and cuss. We know where we're at. We know how to act like decent people. We're there representing our community. We're there representing this town. We're there as a part of this town. We were this Hammonton Pride as an organization is supported by the community.
And it's for the community.
It's for the community. We're a service to the community. We're not there to brainwash anybody. We're not there to push our agenda. We don't even have an agenda. Our agenda is just to live our lives. That's our agenda.
Yeah.
To live our lives just like everybody else is living their lives. Yes, it's pretty crazy if you think about it in the scheme of the history of the world. Like I just said, drag was literally illegal up until the 60s, if you consider the fact that people of the opposite gender couldn't wear clothing, out in public. So, in the history of the world, it's a blip of time that we've had these freedoms. And we're going to use those freedoms because that's what they're there for. So I could see why.
Wow, I'm ignorant. People would get arrested before the 60s?
Yeah, up until basically mid 60s. I don't know the exact date, but throughout the 60s, there were constant raids on queer spaces because, by the way, there weren't true queer spaces. There were bars that cater to gay and lesbian men and women, but they were usually run and operated by the mafia because they could pay off the police to not raid them. So you're dealing with, mafia essentially, which didn't treat gay people that well either, but it did allow them a place to go because they recognized, well, this is a form of income for us. And, so you couldn't legally operate a gay bar because it was also illegal for gay people to be in a room together. If there were two gay men in a room together, a bar could get shut down. That was a law.
Really?
Yes. That was a national law throughout the country. You couldn't dance together. You couldn't be you couldn't be in a bar together or any sort of establishment together. So you had to be in the closet. And if you were outed, you would lose your job. You probably couldn't get a new one. especially if you worked in the government. Like, forget it. Like, you just couldn't. You just couldn't get a job. Many people lost their lives over this. This is not a small thing. This was a big thing.
Are you angry? Are you angry?
I think I'm angry at the fact that happened to those people, and I'm slightly angry that people, like, that part of like the history of our country, people don't know about that. And so, like, they complain about us being in a Christmas parade, but like, that's, again, like, do I blame them? No, because they don't know the history of it. But if they knew the history, would it change anything? I'm not really sure, but it would help.
Oh, I think it would.
It would help. Like, it just would help a little bit for people to know, like, I didn't know that. I didn't know you could be arrested for dressing in drag in the 60s. I mean, it just got taken off of, like, the the American Psychiatric Association's list of diseases, like, in the early 70s. Like,
oh, wow.
There's so many things that existed and were created in, like, the 20s, 30s, 40s, and especially the 50s during the Lavender Scare, that were like laws that were put into effect to annihilate and get rid of homosexuals, because it was considered, a mental disorder or whatever people thought it was. And we're just now starting to get, those rights back and more, and they're threatened to be taken away from us again. And, like, why?
Yeah.
What does this have to do with anybody else's life other than our own?
Right. And this is why, like, Hammonton Pride is so important, is because, especially even for the younger generation of the queer community, I would have no idea about any of this had I not met Maddy and the other people I've met through doing Hammonton Pride and the connections I've made. And also, with the whole, referring back to the parade, if people are so genuinely concerned, then why not just have a conversation?
Sure.
Where you can learn more and see that there is no true danger or fear here. I'm always open to conversation with people and educating as much as I can. I surely don't have, the plethora of information that others do, but I can at least offer my piece, and others who are part of Hammonton Pride, and educating people, because I do think people are ignorant, and that's not necessarily something they're not choosing to be ignorant sometimes, but you can just become ignorant to things that don't have anything to do with your life necessarily. Maybe one of your children or family members or whomever, you don't have any queer people in your life where it would affect you in any way, shape, or form.
Or you don't know.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important that we just stress, like, ignorant, not necessarily as a judgment, but just as, like, a fact, lack of knowledge,
right.
A fact of lack of knowledge. And, like, I'll use my own family as an example. Like, my parents, when I was a teenager, like, I didn't have a great coming out story, because, like, for me, I was so afraid to tell my parents. And I tried to, like, quite a few times, and I just couldn't get the courage to do it. And I don't know why, because, I didn't think, like, they were going to kick me out, but, like, there's always that fear in the back of your mind, like, what if they treat me differently now? And so I just never did. And I waited, like, almost too long, and it got to the point where my parents sat me down and said, listen, I think we know what's going on here.
Wow.
Like, in a way, I was a little bit relieved. And, I'm going to say this because it was a learning for all of us, but, like, I'll never forget what they told me. They said, okay, well, we understand it's not what we would have chosen for you, but, like, we accept that about you, but just be careful, because you'll probably end up alone and you'll probably get AIDS, is what they told me. And, like, we've come a long way, and believe me, like, my parents are very supportive now. They are very supportive. They would never say anything like that now. They grew up in a time teenagers in the 70s, like, in their 20s and the 80s, like, they witnessed AIDS, like, they witnessed that. They knew people that died. That was what they knew. Yeah. And, like, so again, like, people, they just don't know what they don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful that now, like, my sister's kids are having a fully different experience growing up. They have an uncle that's openly gay who's married. They have that as somebody who's like, you know, a role model for them. I have two trans nephews, a step nephew and my like actual nephew. They both identify as trans, and like knowing them from babies, there's no other way they could have been. This is not a learned thing. Like no kid learns this. It is truly in their identity. Like what 3-year-old like saw something and it's like, no, I don't want to wear a dress. Like, don't put me in a dress. I don't want to wear a dress. They used to be called tomboys. I'm not saying every tomboy was trans, but like this has always been there. This has always been there. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. Yeah, I mean, the thing is like people like the world is changing and it's growing really, really fast. And I think that the speed that things grow really, really scares people, and it makes them really nervous because they think things are taking over. Things aren't taking over. They're just coming to the light that they couldn't be in before. And we're sharing information, we're growing information. And like my connection with Hammonton Pride, and this is what I said from the beginning, like when I competed in the first year, like I think it's so incredibly important to be able to be there and be a resource for your community and be somebody who is like an example to those people that we didn't have when we were kids. Like we didn't have anybody. Like I didn't have anybody. I had TV, I had movies, but I didn't know anybody that was openly gay because in like the 90s, it wasn't that cool yet. I mean, it was, but it wasn't in like rural areas. And like the fact that I can be that from like my niece and nephew is like just a mind-blowing thing that I can't even imagine having when I was a kid. And the fact that Hammonton Pride now exists in a place where it didn't, where we can be like a place that encourages people to be themselves, like is just it's incredible that this exists.
Well, I guess this is probably a good way to segue into the exhibit as well. Speaking about not only shining a light on drag culture and but also about educating people as well, because there's two sort of parts to this exhibit. Like how did this come about?
So I had originally thought of just doing a Pride exhibit, if you want to call it that, with Kramer Hall and our dear friend Nick Zabrowski from Kramer Hall. He reached out to Michael Cagno, who works with the Noyes Museum, and we sat down, oh gosh, I think it was like last summer maybe was our first meeting. I'm not entirely, I can't even remember, it feels so long ago at this point. And I just kind of expressed the idea of wanting Hammonton Pride to partner with the museum, and maybe we could just showcase like queer artwork if there are local or regional queer artists. And then we could do, a small little thing about drag and Hammonton Pride. Maybe we'll put some dresses on display or whatever. Like, It was a very tiny little idea. And then Maddy Milan got involved.
Well, that is exactly how you pitched it to me, and my first thought is, well, I'm taking over that whole space.
Maddy hijacked.
And you sure did.
I took over that whole space.
Maddy
Those gowns are
the exhibit.
Gorgeous.
Thank you.
But I'm still blown away by how it turned out.
Yeah.
Obviously we don't, I think showcasing this type of queer art was definitely, I think that was ultimately the route that it was meant to take, with drag and how powerful it is within the queer community. I mentioned in an article and in my speech how, I truly think drag queens are the queer community superheroes, like on the front lines of our community, championing our rights and putting themselves out there in this armor, basically, to, make sure that light doesn't dim on our community. But yeah, so the exhibit itself obviously consists of all the beauty and glamour that is drag and pageantry especially. And we have a full drag room where it walks you through how somebody gets into drag and everything that goes into it. All of Maddy's hair is on display, and all the different garments and everything down to the duct tape. In all the undergarments, we have a whole drag bag explosion, basically. All the different garments are there, and obviously throughout the whole exhibit, you see all the different gowns with their vignettes and what they were worn for and who made them. Even the crowns and scepters from the past 2 pageants are there on display, who are made by the crown jeweler of RuPaul's Drag Race. So they make all the crowns and scepters for the people who win each year on the show. And also, like you mentioned earlier about queer icons like Judy Garland, there's a whole section on that and why those icons, especially women, are so important to the queer community. And in the second exhibit, we have the educational portion, and it talks about gay Atlantic City back in the day and when queer culture was thriving there, and the whole neighborhood and all the bars and clubs. All of that's on display, and obviously, Hammonton's short but sweet history thus far of what we've done in town. We even have a whole portion on the Christmas parade, including comments that were made. I wanted it to be very honest.
Sure.
I'm not trying to give those people a platform per se, but it's the whole, experience of doing that parade, and obviously, being the first LGBTQ plus representation in the parade. It was important to share, everybody's reactions to that.
It was the good and the bad.
It was the good and the
very
bad.
Balanced.
Yeah, it was. I made
felt
sure
like
it was
the
balanced.
true experience of it.
Exactly. Even we've showcased the Gazette article that was published.
Sure.
All was not jolly,
which was fascinating.
Christmas parade. Not calling them out, but if you're going to write a whole article about us, there should have been a picture of us.
Yes,
in
I
there.
thought that was, we had 2 full pages.
We had
and
2 full pages and
photo.
not a photo, but that's okay. Shout out to the Gazette. At least I appreciate them covering it at least. They did do a fabulous write-up of the pageant when Dallas won. That's also on display in the exhibit. I even have posters on display from the drag shows at Cathedral. Trixie Mattel hand signed, and Shangela also from RuPaul's Drag Race hand signed, hang up in there. So we made it obviously to talk about drag as a whole, but obviously locally too. Because it is Hammonton Pride. So what are we doing here?
Right.
But like I said, Maddy completely torpedoed the exhibit and it exploded. But I mean, it's just, if anyone hasn't been there in person yet, obviously there are some images out there online, but to experience it in person is a whole other thing.
If they do want to see it, where do they see it, and when is it open?
So it's currently on display at the Noyes Museum of Art at Kramer Hall in downtown Hammonton. I'm not entirely sure what their hours are every week. I
believe
think it's like
8 till
8 to 4:30 or something. I know their summer hours are a little different, but it will be on display until September 29th. It was actually supposed to end in July, but they extended it all the way through September 29th.
That was really exciting.
Yeah, we're super, super grateful for all of the support that the Noyes Museum and Stockton University has put into this exhibit.
They've been incredibly generous.
Yes,
they really have.
Generous.
And like the support from obviously their team, and just like the collaboration between the gallery and the school, and just the like in terms of the marketing that they've done, and the support in terms of like building
really
show. Like they've done such an incredible job, and it is so meaningful, I think, to like Hammonton Pride, and honestly like the community at large, that they
the arts in general, really
that they really truly invested in this like concept and this subject, because it's pretty incredible.
It is. And it could be quite controversial, obviously, given today's climate. So the fact that they partnered with us, and really partnered with us, and basically let us do whatever we wanted, is insane. I mean, I was even worried they weren't going to let me hang the hate comments up. But there was,
they were in full support.
Yeah, I mean, there's keyboard warriors on one side, but there's also very brave people on the other side.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
listen, Don, I got one final question. Can I shoot?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So we've talked about heavy stuff. We've talked about a lot of really important things. So I have one final question. I wrote it down so I could get the wording correct. Okay. For all the future drag queens that are definitely listening to this show right now, what makes a fabulous drag queen that can truly slay?
I mean, more than anything, I honestly truly believe confidence is the key. Because if you have confidence to get up and put on any sort of an outfit, I don't even care how good it is. You can borrow something. Throw on some makeup, or maybe don't throw on some makeup. And get up in front of a room of your peers and just like absolutely have the time of your life. That to me is like you've already won, I think.
Definitely. And sometimes you got to fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
But,
But if you want to win Hammonton Pride,
Yeah.
that's different. You better come with a really good package.
Oh, yeah.
You better have a very tight talent. You better look really good in an evening gown. And you better be really willing to support your community and be a confident leader, because
Hell yeah.
Hammonton deserves
Hell yeah.
it. Hammonton deserves it.
Yes.
Fake it till you make it. Isn't that what we're doing right now, Don?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the key to life.
Yeah, I think things slow down once you start knowing the rules. So
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I think if you the more rules I learn, the more rules I want to break. So
Yeah.
that's my philosophy. I think rules are crazy, and if I'm like that's made up, I'm breaking that rule. Because nothing ever cool was invented without breaking a rule. You know what I mean?
That's true.
For sure.
Yeah. But I mean, and if there
As
are
the
any
principal of a school and a camp director, I cannot.
Yeah,
comment on
I
it.
don't think you should condone that. No, I don't.
More guidelines than rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, and I mean, if there is anybody listening to this that perhaps does have an interest in drag, or is just, questioning, or needs someone to talk to, or point them in the right direction, or whatever, that's why, Hammonton Pride is here.
Yeah.
It's obviously all the drag is all the glitz and glamour and the fun of it all, and we have a blast, and our pageants are just get better and better each year, and this exhibit is like, I think, the pinnacle of what we've done so far. But really what it all boils down to is just being able to help. So I mean, it warms my heart, I think, the most when people do actually reach out and say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. What do you think I should do? Or where can I go to, get help with this? Whether it's, if you're, questioning gender identity and your sexuality or whatever. There's so many resources, especially here in South Jersey, that are popping up that we can help connect people with through the connections that we've made in such a short time. Because sometimes it's scary. You don't know where to go or who to talk to or where you're a safe space. And sometimes there isn't even a physical safe space, but we can at least offer a safe space online, being on social media, through our website, and at the events that we do throughout the year. So, we're always here for everybody, even if you're not just from Hammonton. You could be from anywhere in South Jersey or, the country for that matter.
So,
but that's why we're here.
As an arts organization, what can we do to help and support the Pride community in Hammonton?
That's a good question.
That's a really great question. I don't know exactly how to answer that, because I think you are supporting. I mean, you've had
just
us
by
here
having
today.
art,
This is support, and I think this is what community should look like. I think it should be people having a curiosity about other people, having an open mind about other people. You can have, a preconceived, thought about somebody, but be willing to challenge that and let them challenge it, and, just see where conversations go. And, more than anything, I just think like people need to just be nicer to each other in general. I think this all the time, and it kind of like hurts my brain a little bit, but like when I go to the grocery store and I see like people and like my neighbors, nobody's mean to me at the grocery store. We're all perfectly friendly. Like, if I'm in your way, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do
Has
that.
no
and
one,
they do the same thing.
Is that everywhere? Have you guys not ever actually experienced hate on the street?
I mean, I have.
I think that it's I think that there are places and times where that does happen. Yeah.
Even I mean, on my own street. I mean, I don't know what I'm allowed to say on this show.
You can say whatever you want on the show.
My partner and I will, depending on when this comes out, I haven't posted it yet, but my partner and I just got engaged this past weekend.
Congratulations.
But we've lived downtown, you know, just even since we started dating. And the one, you know, neighbors in passing or whatever, I mean, we've been called faggots right on our street, walking our dogs. What did he say? Oh, why do you have to make it so obvious that you're faggots? That was the question. Which, I mean, I didn't realize walking our dogs down the street was, you know, typical faggot behavior, but I guess it is. Even downtown, there's been kids, I remember now, and it's usually, I think it's the same group of kids. Like, I think I know who they are. I got their number. But, yeah, the one time I walked in to get my hair cut, and I've been called a faggot on Bellevue Avenue in the middle of the afternoon, you know, screamed in front of passing traffic. So, yeah, I mean, does it happen all the time? No, but it still happens here. And I think, you know, growing up, that didn't necessarily happen to me. I guess in school, yes. But I think people have gotten more ballsy nowadays with their hate. And frankly, I mean, I don't understand it. Yeah. But hopefully,
bring me and John along. Next time you walk those dogs, you bring me and John.
Yeah. People love to use that word, but at this point, you know, I don't let it affect me. It doesn't get to me. Like, you're not doing anything by calling me that. Like, I would be the first thing. Yep, fag over here. Hello, I'm here.
Yeah. It doesn't make it okay.
It doesn't make it okay, but
yeah.
You know, for the first time in my life, just because I'm Jewish and with everything going on in the world, I'm like, tell my kids they wear their Jewish star on their necklaces. I'm like, God, I don't know. Should I let them wear it? Like, is someone going to attack them for it? Like, I kind of, for the first time in my life, am getting to experience something like this. And it's not a good feeling.
Scary. It is scary just to just exist and try and live your daily life, and it's like I just don't understand the need to say something. You know what? Think whatever in your head. I don't care what goes on in your head. But to verbalize it and make someone else feel uncomfortable for absolutely no reason makes
they are
no
100%. Listen, those people who do that there's 100% chance that they are unhappy, mixed up people.
Yeah. Yes.
100%. No one does that if they're living a good life and happy and have people that love them and have a fulfilling life. Nobody with that life is doing that.
Right.
Yeah. And I like to hope that most people are good people. I mean, they have to be. I think like it's what Max is saying. I think that there's like a small group of people, or I don't even know how big they are, who are unhappy and want other people to feel that hurt and pain, and that's what they cause, and it's unfortunate and it's sad. And you know, that's kind of what I was trying to say. Like in the grocery store when I go there, it's maybe not a strong analogy, but like, you know, I feel fine there. I feel like I'm part of this community. We're all doing our thing. We're buying our ice cream and we're being polite to each other, and like that's how society should be. Like, I let you buy your chips, you let me buy my soda. We don't need to bother each other, but if you want to say hi to me, I'm going to say hi back and say have a good day. Like, let's be nice. Let's be like just nice to each other. Let's start with that. And then if my lifestyle really bothers you,
I'm going to judge you now. What kind of ice cream are you getting?
Well, it's not just going to be one. It's going to have to be like mint chocolate chip and then something with a peanut butter swirl. And then I'm going to need a plain vanilla so that I can mix my own stuff into it later. I need options, okay? I can't just have one ice cream.
Yes, if you know Maddy Milan, she needs options.
Yeah, she needs a lot.
She needs a lot of options, as you can tell by the drag room.
Yeah, I don't go to a show with just one dress in my garment bag. There's several.
No, yeah, there's.
You like your dresses like you like your ice cream.
Yeah, multiple options, and Yeah, something that.
Yeah, there's been many a time
My
where
God, I just knocked the table.
after an event, it's like, well, I made 5 other things to wear for this, but I just brought this one.
Yeah.
But I have 5 more options here just in case. But yeah, no, we all need to be a little bit nicer to each other. And just you don't need to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Let's just be nice.
Yeah,
Especially
I hope, Don,
Hammonton
listen,
specifically, at least. Let's just be nice, Hammonton, okay?
and let's accept each other. Let's accept
Yes.
each other.
Exactly.
Yeah, because
I hope.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I hope Don wasn't too mean to you on this podcast. I mean, he has
I don't know.
little
He felt
temper.
a little aggressive at some points.
Sorry,
But
Should have.
Yeah,
Listen, my black
I
eye
felt
will
it from-
heal. I'm not. It's fine. It's not the first time.
Yeah, I should have brought a larger bottle of water for everybody. Well, Max, Maddy, thank you so much for being with us on this little podcast of ours. Really appreciate it. I'm going to post all of the rest of the dates for the Drag is Not a Crime and
Thank you.
links
amazing.
for any of your social media stuff
Yeah.
with this.
Yeah, everything is, at Hammonton Pride or hammontonpride.com. All of our information is up to date on where you can find us in person and online.
And yeah, if you want to come, the next pageant, the third annual Miss Hammonton Pride, November 23rd
Yes.
at Cathedral Event Center.
Yes.
It's going to be I cannot wait. It's going to be the biggest, the best one yet. I am so excited.
Yeah, tickets will be on sale shortly, and registration will also open if there's any queens listening that want to participate and apply to be a part of our pageant and hopefully win the crown. There's more cash prizes on the line here. We got bigger dollar amounts going on.
Nice.
Big old crown and scepter, and so much more. But yeah, good things on the horizon for us.
Excellent. Thanks again, and see you all soon.
Yes,
thank you.
anytime.
This episode was supported in part by a grant from the New Jersey Department of State, Division of Travel and Tourism.